Oops, ad cells. And then the device, the Wave League stream, done. All right, we should have audio now. It looks like we do have audio now. For some reason, there was an update to our streaming software. Anyway, welcome in to Load the Box. We're off to an electric start. We had last week off due to some scheduling conflicts that kind of popped up. I had to do some stuff with some school stuff. Jack had to do stuff with his actual job. So we're back on the host this week. Should be back to being weekly. There was a football game while we were gone, Jack. A very if you were a Broncos fan, a very exciting football game. If you're a Vikings fan, man, kind of rough. A little bit of a rough week to be a Vikings fan. But it's the preseason, and we were actually talking right before we went on air about how it doesn't really matter, especially on the defensive side of things, because a lot of the key guys on our defense did not suit up in pads to play in this game. We're going to get into it, Mo. We're going to talk about it all, Mo, as the show goes on. But first, it's been a minute. How have you been? How's everything in the Jack Day household?
It's been a crazy couple of weeks. Obviously, like you just said, there was some scheduling stuff last week. It's been nonstop busyness, it feels like, for the last month or so. But it did feel great to turn on the TV on Saturday and see. I mean, I know the outcome of the game, it wasn't ideal. I think I'd be saying, I think if the Vikings, if the score was reversed, I think we'd be saying the same thing, like pump the brakes. It's still the preseason. I know it's a little easier said than done, because if Kellen Mond came out and he threw 4 touchdowns and they annihilated Denver, we'd have a better taste in our mouth. But at the end of the day, it's still preseason. The next 2 games are still going to be preseason. I know there's going to be a little bit more of a reason to watch next Saturday or this coming Saturday, because it sounds like, I don't know if you saw this, but one of the beat reporters up here said, it wasn't word for word, but along the lines of saying, I've never seen a veteran player as excited as I see Michael Pierce, as Michael Pierce was up by the podium. And she said, never seen a veteran this excited to play in a preseason game. And if that doesn't get Vikings fans excited to watch Michael Pierce plug up the middle, I don't know what will. I mean, I saw the picture that was tweeted with that quote. I was like, I didn't really realize how big of a specimen Michael Pierce was. I think his legs were like, I mean, you just have to look at the picture, because he's wearing like the new in style, like 7-inch seam shorts. So it comes up his quads a little bit. It's like, I don't know how much you can squat, but judging from this picture, I know the answer to that question is a lot. But yeah, it's been a good week, and I'm looking forward to getting more and more into meaningful football here in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, it was because I was panicking. Neither one of us were able to. I'm gonna tattle on us. We both have like lives outside of football, and we do things outside of just like eat, sleep, breathe Minnesota Vikings football. And while I believe you said you had a golf outing that you were attending at the time of the preseason game. I had dinner with a family member. I was actually in Chicago all weekend long. So neither one of us was able to watch the game live. We've obviously, I'm sure we both watched the YouTube video, like that, the NFL posted, like of the highlights. And then I actually sat down and watched like the full, half hour condensed game version just before the show today, so that way I could really break things down. But I was pretty nervous at first, because I was watching them get blown off the ball time and time and time again. But then, as we discussed before the show, Tomlinson, Michael Pierce, Sheldon Richardson, Danielle Hunter, none of those guys played in this game. So it'll be interesting to see as the preseason moves along what kind of hodgepodge group we get on that defense, what the secondary looks like, just what everybody looks like. And who knows, maybe in preseason week 3, which is typically where, like, you get a full half of the starters playing, maybe if we still get that, maybe it's Danielle Hunter lining up on one side and Everson Griffin lining up on the other, because he was visiting with the team today. Jack, what do you think of Everson Griffin? I know he has the cousin stuff, and he has the mental health, and he's got baggage for sure. But what do you think of the Vikings talking to him and the ripples, the effects that could cause in the organization?
I think, I don't know. Obviously, neither you or myself are sitting in that locker room, but I can't imagine that Kirk Cousins is sitting there. And I know he's said in the past that he does what he can to stay off social media. I mean, I would too if I was Kirk Cousins, because it's constant negativity about the guy. But I have a hard time believing he hasn't seen the tweets that Everson Griffin put out there. I think that was a pretty big story. Whenever that was, I don't even know when that was, but it was essentially saying like ask ask around. I don't. It was written with like 4 question marks after each sentence, so I don't exactly remember what it said, but it was saying like ask Zimmer if he wanted Cousins in that locker room, if that was his guy. And it's like, do we want to bring in a pass rusher that is past his prime? I do believe he can come in and he can make a difference on that defense. He's a veteran leader. He's always been very vocal on the defensive side of the ball for the Vikings when he was here. But there are some young, intriguing pass rushing options behind Stephen Weatherly and DJ Wanham. I know Wanham is a guy who has had one of the better camps along that defensive line outside of Michael Pierce, who has been destroying Garrett Bradbury apparently every single day of practice. But it it brings in more drama to a locker room that already has a ton of drama. Obviously, a couple weeks ago, we had the Kirk Cousins instance with the COVID-19 stuff with Kellen Mond as well. And Jake Browning was the only quarterback that practiced in that Saturday night practice. And a few days after that, Jake Browning did not look very good on Saturday. He threw a pick six to, I believe it was the 9th overall pick that Denver had with Patrick Surtain the second. He threw a pick six to him, and then it was the Kellen Mond era, if you will, in the preseason at least for the Vikings. And I think this is going into I'm spiraling out of control here. You can tell I'm trying to talk about 18 different things at once. But at the end of the day, if they worked out Everson Griffin and they feel like he can make a difference, I don't think he's a guy that needs to be on the field for all 3 downs. Even he can strictly come in if you want to have Weatherly. Having said that, Everson Griffin was very good in the run game, so maybe you do want him out there on earlier downs, and then you can put more of a pure pass rusher if that is going to be a DJ Wanham type role, or if Janarius Robinson or Patrick Jones the second step into that role. But I think all these names that I'm listing, the depth is there, and you and I were kind of conversing about this prior to the show. If Everson Griffin comes in, does that mean Stephen Weatherly goes out after he had an atrocious Saturday against Denver? I have his PFF grade written down. He had a 32.7 overall grade, which is not good whatsoever. So if they're going to bring him in for at least competition, see what he still has left in the tank, I'm for it. But at the end of the day, I do think it could create some drama within that locker room.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, if we're looking to bring in guys for competition and you know, just for what they might be able to bring, Tim Tebow's available. I mean, the guy can play tight end, quarterback. We could probably put him at running back if we really wanted to. The Griffin thing to me, and I go back and forth because I love Everson Griffin. You know, he's done great things with the Vikings. It just, like you said, I would only be okay with it if it was Stephen Weatherly that was getting the boot, and not one of the young guys like Patrick Jones, Janarius Robinson, because it doesn't make sense to. I know you were always in concerns. You can't put those guys on the practice squad and then potentially have them be swiped away, go somewhere else and flourish, so that way you can get 1 year out of a very aged Everson Griffin. And then the drama aspect of everything. I've seen a lot on Twitter about it, how, oh, everyone should just be adults and everyone, he should just come in and apologize. And I get that, yeah, but we already have a locker room. The Atlanta Falcons just hit 100% COVID vaccination rate on their team. I think that includes coaching staff as well. So they're they're the gold standard, if you will, of what the league wants. The Vikings, last I heard, were still the lowest in the league, sitting in that high 60s, low 70s range. So you're dealing with that. And then you would also be throwing that in there. Not to mention, there's a lot of new guys in this locker room, guys that I'm not talking about rookies either. There's Patrick Peterson and Dalvin Tomlinson and Michael Pierce and all these guys that are coming in. Do you want to bring Everson back in there? Well, I feel like he's going to kind of feel, hey, this is my locker room. Give me my old locker back. And then Michael Pierce has that locker now, and it turns into it just seems like it creates a lot more problems than it solves. And then a name that really didn't get brought up, Sheldon Richardson, is kind of that guy who it's like, oh yeah, we'll bring him in and we'll have him play on passing downs in like a purely pass rushing situation. It just doesn't seem like it makes sense. If it was a 60-man roster, I would say go for it. But I don't know. We'll see. Nothing's set in stone. There's no news that has broke about how they're signing him. It was just a visit. Maybe Zimmer just wanted to get some drinks with the guy and catch up on how things were in Dallas and talk about all that. But moving on to, I want to talk about the preseason game a little bit. Some of the bright spots that I saw, actually the two main ones that I saw. I'll start with the least like headline grabbing one. I really like Emil Smith-Marset. He dropped, I think, two passes that if he would have bought in, I would have just been like, oh yeah, this guy, like I love him. But he did have a couple plays. He had one return where I was like, wow, that guy's fast. And then he had one. It wasn't a very advanced route, but it was just he caught the ball and toned up, and I was like, man, that guy is quick, and he's playing against NFL talent. Really liked what I saw out of Emil Smith-Marset. I would say I would give him like a B plus on the day, strictly because of that special teams return that he had, where he took off and he reversed fields and he did that thing. Stephon Diggs used to do it all the time where like they're in full sprint and they kind of like stutter for half a second and then, they just go right back to full speed. He hit one of those on somebody. So really liked what I saw out of him. Jack, who caught your eye? Or what have you been hearing about who's been catching eyes out of that preseason loss?
Yeah, some of these are interchangeable with negativity and positivity because the offensive line, it did have some winners and it also had some very, very steep losers, which I think when I say the word loser and a poor performance, I think most Vikings fans that watch the 2020 season can probably guess who this guard, this shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I saw a tweet. I think there was 312 interior offensive linemen or guards that took a snap in the first week of the preseason, and one Minnesota Vikings guard finished dead last out of all of those qualifying guards, and that is everyone's favorite Minnesota Viking, Dakota Dozier. Did not have a good performance, but the positive is it sounds like, and PFF agreed with this, and it's a lot harder when you're watching these games, especially when it's a preseason game. And like you just said, we did not watch these games live. I watched kind of when Kellen Mond took over and Browning threw that pick six is when I got back to my friend's house and we turned it on and I was at least watching. But Mason Cole and Wyatt Davis both graded above a 78. I believe. I think Wyatt Davis was like a 78 something, and then Mason Cole is the highest graded offensive player with like an 80 something PFF grade. That's great news for the Vikings because the interior of that offensive line last year was absolutely atrocious. I don't think Wyatt Davis is necessarily ready to step into that role. When I checked in with a source, it didn't sound like he was having the greatest of training camp. Obviously, he wasn't when he was taking third team center reps, but it's good news that he got some live action and he graded out well. Chris Boyd also, the Denver Broncos had some of their ones out early in the game. Chris Boyd was matched up with Jerry Jeudy. There was a route that Jerry Jeudy ran in the end zone when it was like 4th and 2. Someone had that up on Twitter. He graded out well, and he's obviously battling for a roster spot. I don't know how many cornerbacks they're going to take, but Chris Boyd has been a name that I feel like he's a great locker room presence. He seems like he's friends with everybody on this team. Kirk Cousins had a press conference, I think it was the day, and they were saying that actually Amir Smith-Marset took over the DJ duties within the locker room during rookie minicamp, and he still kind of has that. But the other DJ is Chris Boyd. And whenever you see stuff on social media of these guys kind of messing around outside of football, it seems like Chris Boyd, Delvin Cook, Jefferson, it seems like there's a group there that really there's a good friendship with Chris Boyd. And I know it's football and people don't want to hear about that, but that goes a long ways if you're a good locker room presence and you're going out and you're showing out against, hey, Jerry Jeudy was arguably one of the best wide receivers, or supposedly one of the best wide receivers in the draft last year, and he played it well and he held his ground. So that's some of the positives. I know probably the next guy that we're going to talk about is you can kind of say there was negative and positive watching his game back, but I know you said it was more positive on your end. I think I tend to agree with this. I think I want to see the Vikings this weekend. I want to give Kellen Mond more chances to just let it loose. I know Zimmer said leading up to this game that it was one of those situations where they didn't really think Mond was going to get a chance to play because they didn't think he knew the playbook quite well enough yet, and they really shrunk it down for him. I'm not saying they have to come out and throw their week 1 playbook out in a preseason game against the Colts, but let's see what Mond's arm looks like. Let's see Amir Smith-Marset take off on a deep post or a fly route and just let Mond air it out at least once. I want to see that at least once. I want to see, we saw it in practice early on in training camp where he hit, I think it was like a 40-yard pass to Amir Smith-Marset. I want to see more out of Kellen Mond because now I believe that the quarterback 2 spot is wide open for the taking. I don't think Jake Browning did himself any favors. And I said this on my podcast yesterday too. It really, it's not anywhere really near the same as this, but Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, 2 completely different quarterbacks, different styles. Case Keenum obviously is more mobile, more of a gunslinging, didn't care if he turned the ball over. I shouldn't say that. He cared if he turned the ball over, but he did it more frequently. He trusted his wide receivers a lot more. I see a lot more Kirk Cousins and Sam Bradford similarities, and I'm not even saying Kellen Mond is necessarily similar to Case Keenum, but it's a change of pace quarterback that has a lot higher upside than what Jake Browning has. I think I spent a lot of time on the show leading up to the draft that I didn't want Sean Mannion as the backup option for this team because the excitement level is not there. The excitement level, the change of pace, all of that's there. And we saw that on Saturday with Kellen Mond, but I think he had like 5 carries for 25 yards. We saw him use his legs. Now I want to see what he can do through the air.
Yeah, one thing, because Mond was the next upside that I had, which no disrespect to AJ Rose. He had like 2 good runs. Everything else, he was just kind of Matt Asiatiing around, just bouncing, getting 2 or 3 yards here and there. I'm going to start with a criticism of Mond and then talk about basically rehashing kind of what you just said. The criticism I have is there was one spot, I think it was like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. It was a 3rd and long situation. And he scrambled out and then he was like, okay, I'll just take off, even though there were 3 Broncos standing in his way. And that's a spot where maybe he just ran because it's preseason and whatever. But I would have preferred, that's a spot where you say, okay, he's running because he thinks he can run, rather than he's running because the opportunity is there, and he was using his legs to be mobile or to be a runner rather than using his legs to extend time and do what elite quarterbacks in this league can do. But the positive aspect of that is I saw him make a lot of they weren't like difficult throws. It wasn't like he was falling down and throwing the ball 60 yards and hitting guys in the helmet like Patrick Mahomes can do. But there were a couple times where it was like he was dropping back, pressure was coming in his face early, and he kind of just like he didn't have his feet in a good spot, and instead of having to just take that sack, he kind of got it out at an awkward angle with his feet in an odd position. And I really liked, I think he had 2 or 3 of those throws throughout the game. 2 of them got caught, and I think one of them was a drop that should have been caught. I just liked what I saw from him. I'm excited to see him play this Saturday night at, let's see, it would be 8 p.m. Central Time, so 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so 7 p.m. Central Time. I'm excited to see him play. I hope he plays. I hope they have him play with the 1s and 2s or however they're going to do it, and then they have Browning come in to play the second half or however they want to split it up. But I hope we see a lot of Kellen Mond because oh man, like there's just, maybe it has to just be, I'm so sick of Kirk Cousins and I'm still mad at him for whatever reason. And it's just my base instinct is like, there's a new quarterback, he's got to be the future. But I think he's going to clean some things up. I think the more time he gets practicing with the guys, the 1s and the 2s and everything, it's going to be better. And it's just a shame. I doubt Justin Jefferson plays on Saturday. I don't have you heard anything about Jefferson? I know he's back in pads at practice, but
I haven't, but I would be pretty surprised if we see, I guess there's a couple Vikings that I'd be surprised if they play. I haven't heard anything. This is all speculation. But I would put Jefferson in that list. I would put Danielle Hunter in that list, and I think I would put Dalvin Cook on that list as
right.
well.
And then Thielen's not going to play either, is he? I mean, there's like, it's kind of that thing. It's the veterans aren't going to play, and unfortunately, like some of the guys that I really want to see Kellen Mond be out there with Thielen and Jefferson and Cook and the full power offense because I want to see what he's capable of. But I might have to wait a year or 2 to be able to see that because there's no need for Thielen to play in preseason games right now. He doesn't need to prove himself. We know what he is. Jefferson, unfortunately had that shoulder issue. So it's like, why risk it? We don't know if he's going to be able to recreate last year. We all assume that he can, but why risk it whenever it's a shout in preseason? So,
I think maybe they should just bring out an all-speed team, and they have Kellen Mond at quarterback, Nwangu at running back, Amir Smith-Marset, and KJ
I
Osborne out
like
at
it.
wide receiver, and then you put out Zach Davidson in at tight end, and you just let everyone run straight down the field, and we see how far Kellen Mond can throw a
I see.
football.
I like that. This is the like 7-year-old me playing Madden, like playbook where it's all foul votes and Hail Marys because it's like the only way to play football is to throw it 50 plus yards down the field. Zach Davidson also, he upset me because he dropped a touchdown from Kellen Mond, which is pretty upsetting. But who knows? Maybe he's a rookie. Was he undrafted or was he like a 7th or 6th round guy?
He was a fifth-round pick,
Okay,
I believe.
all right. So late draft pick. We'll see what
Sixth
happens.
round, maybe fifth or sixth.
I don't. So
somewhere in
I
there.
don't think we had a 7th because I remember that kind of being a meme because like
Yeah, but then we had our last pick was Twyman.
at 199.
I wonder if we had two sixth-round picks.
That
I
must
think,
have been what it was.
Amir Smith-Marset was in the fifth. It was we either had 2 5s or 2 6s.
Right.
It was one or the other.
He was a late round pick, so he's not necessarily guaranteed a spot day one, in the offense. But he is he's a long and big guy, so a good red zone target. And Kellen Mond clearly saw that, and unfortunately they dropped that touchdown. Kellen Mond had 2 drop touchdowns on him in that preseason game. It's kind of upsetting. That's why I want to see him. Thielen catches that ball, not the Zach Davidson one, but the one where the guy jumped and then never really got possession and they hit him and drove it. Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson catch that ball 9.5 times out of 10, unless they break a finger or something. But man, it's just exciting. It's an exciting time to be a Vikings fan, I think, with Kellen Mond being not at the helm yet, but being there, watching him develop, doing all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time and a long ways to go still, obviously. I think the excitement is fair. I think you and I were both excited when he was drafted. I think we're still both excited just to get a taste of kind of learning his style. Like I said, it's a change up from what we've seen over the last 3 years with Kirk Cousins. I still think, and I think you still think this, even though we have a little bit of different views on Kirk Cousins, I think we both can agree still that 2021, this is Kirk Cousins' team. I think that's the best case scenario for this team. If this team wants to win this year, Kirk Cousins is the only answer they have that is going to win them football games. But at the end of the day, if Jake Browning starts to look more and more like, hey, Jake Browning can come in and he can hand the ball off to Dalvin Cook 35, 40 times if Kirk Cousins gets hurt, I think I could hand the ball off 40 times to Dalvin Cook. I want to see Kellen Mond go out. I think leading it up to this game, I think all the beat reporters and I think most people within that front office looked at Jake Browning as QB2. That still might be the case, but the gap has gotten a lot thinner from what it was when Jake Browning was the only quarterback that was vaccinated and leading a practice as the only quarterback at night practice at TCO a couple weeks ago. So I think Kellen Mond has the opportunity to kind of snatch up that job. And I think that if Kirk Cousins does get hurt, I know that's been one of the biggest positives since he arrived in Minnesota. He doesn't miss a ton of time. I think the only game that he missed, he actually sat out because it was that meaningless game 2 years ago before the playoffs.
Yeah.
But say something does happen, or say he does end up on the COVID list and he has to miss a week or two, I want the quarterback that's going to give us the best chance at winning football games. And I don't think that's going to be Jake Browning. I think that's going to be Kellen Mond here in the near future when he kind of does get a full grasp of this offense. And like I said, I don't want someone that's going to come in and they're going to dull down the playbook for him and give everything to Dalvin Cook. The Vikings have 2 of the top pass catchers in the NFL. They have one of the most up and coming tight ends in the NFL. It's a passing league now. You need someone that can sling it and has some excitement to their game. I don't think Jake Browning has that, and I think Kellen Mond does.
I 100% agree. I think it was Jake Browning's job to lose, and I think he looked really good in training camp. I'm not look, football writers got to write about football, okay? And I remember Vikings territory, someone posted a very well-constructed article about, do the Vikings have the next Tony Romo on their roster with Jake Browning after like one good Saturday night practice? And I'm not on the Jake Browning hype train. I'm only on the Kellen Mond hype train because he was a third round pick, and you know where you go doesn't matter. I mean, look at Tom Brady, but at the same time, they clearly have more invested in Kellen Mond. And it also opens up, if Kellen Mond can win that second quarterback job, that opens up a roster spot because do you want to keep Jake Browning for sure, like to be your back, like to be Kellen Mond's backup someday? Like, is that what you want? Is that why you're keeping 3 QBs? Oh, has Kellen Mond showed you enough by the end of preseason that okay, Jake Browning can be a cut guy or he can be a practice squad. I don't know if he has any practice squad eligibility left. But like, because I don't know how the practice squad eligibility rules go. But Jake Browning can be a guy that gets moved off of the 53, and then that opens up a spot for a guy like Everson Griffin, or maybe we sign a guy like Larry Fitzgerald, who I believe is still a free agent. It opens up that extra roster spot. KJ Osborne also. I don't know if it's just because I didn't see him. I don't remember seeing him catch a pass last year. He looked like he had a little bit of a twitch to him. I'm sure you get that way whenever you spend your entire offseason working out with, Pro Bowlers and all pros, and just bettering yourself that way. What have you heard about that wide receiver 3 spot? Is it still wide open, or has anyone really like? I know everyone has good days at practice. Is it KJ Osborne's job to lose at this point with BC being down?
I think it is. I think KJ Osborne has taken massive strides. I think I checked in, this would have been before the preseason game, but at some point last week, I checked in with my source and just I wanted to get a feel for it because I haven't been out at camp outside of one practice. And I wanted to see in their eyes kind of who had the best camp and who was expecting to see more playing time because of the training camp they have. And the 3 names that I heard were Ollie Udo, DJ Wanham, and KJ Osborne. I fully expect KJ Osborne to take that role, but I still think if Amir Smith-Marset comes flying up and makes the squad, which I 100% believe he's going to make the 53-man roster, I think you can use him as more of a gadget player. I think Chad Beebe, if he makes the roster, I know Chad Beebe's limited on special teams to an extent, so I don't know if Chad Beebe can't do anything on special teams. Does that mean he is kind of, I don't want to say surprise cut, because Chad Beebe is a guy that people have had being cut for the last 3 years, and he still finds a way onto the 53-man roster every single year. But it's an exciting positional group to watch now, especially throughout the preseason, because there's guys there. There's some undrafted guys too. It's unfortunate what happened to BC Johnson, but we're talking about all these guys, and that's and this just came to my mind for some reason, without even bringing up the name D.D. Westbrook, who I think is also going to make the roster and be an impact player. So all of a sudden, the Vikings wide receiver room looks like it has some depth, when we were sitting here 2-3 months ago saying wide receiver 3 has to be a priority for this team, even though they're in 12 personnel regularly. I don't think that's the case anymore, because KJ Osborne has taken strides. D.D. Westbrook is a speedster that can get the job done as a third wide receiver. Still have Chad Beebe, and then you have Amir Smith-Marset, who is apparently killing it with the DJ booth at the TCL Performance.
And he's quick. He's got a quick step.
Yeah, the speed alone. You have 2 guys with him and Nwangu that I think can strictly be just gadget players. You can do stuff with those 2 players that the Vikings don't really have a gadget player like they used to in Cordero Patterson. Now they have 2 of them, and I'm really interested to see how that works out heading into the season.
Yeah, I for sure think that something strange has happened here for me anyway. Well, I think I've been following the Vikings like I don't want to say professionally because I don't want to sound like a tool, but like, at a level where like I really follow all 53 or all 80 guys on the roster. It's getting to the point now where it's like, I love Hercules Mataafa, but it's like, can he stay? Because there's all these new guys coming in now. So it's like really following the bottom and middle of this roster is exciting. I think a guy that I couldn't see him being cut because he feels like such a locker room leader, but why can't I? Amir Abdullah feels like a guy who if it just how many running backs are we going to keep on the team? We got Cook, we got Madison, we have C.J. Ham. So those are like the big three, and now we've got. Oh man, help me with his name, Jack.
Nuangu.
Nuangu. It's oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to come up with some type of a nickname or some little device to remember his name. But we've got Nuangu who comes in and he's a speedy guy who has some excitement behind him. And then I don't think that Rose has a chance to make the team, but. I went to a preseason game a few years ago and watched C.J. Ham have a really good game against the Bengals, and then they put him on the practice squad, and they converted him to a fullback. So maybe he has a future in the league if he can continue putting up good performances. But we'll see what happens with the running back room. But it does feel like there's some areas where not everybody makes the team. There can only be 53 guys. So right now, if I had to pick one name that I would put my money on being cut, and I wanted to make some money. I'm not saying I could obviously pick the third string long snapper. I don't think Jake Browning's going to be on the 53 come week 1 against Cincinnati. I just don't see. He didn't look good on Saturday. I don't think he will look good because I think he is kind of a practice squad, emergency QB2 type quarterback. He might be a guy that we have to part ways with come, that time because we're only going to keep Cousins and Mond. Why do we need a third quarterback? So it's going to be exciting to see what happens. I'm excited because there's Vikings football against the Indianapolis Colts in a few days. 8:00. I'm going over to my dad's. Going to hang out, watch the preseason game and probably not even watch most of the preseason game. And then I'll have to rewatch it. But, I'm excited. We're getting so close to football season. Jack, do you have anything else that you want to go into?
I don't think so. I'm just glad we're back in the swing of things. We're going to be talking football a bunch, and these shows are going to get a lot more fun here in 3 weeks only. I mean,
Yeah.
we're 3 weeks away from regular season football. College football comes before that, but we're getting pretty darn close to watching some real meaningful football week 1 against Joe Burrow. I mean, it's an LSU rematch all over the field with Burrow, Chase, Jefferson, and I think the Vikings are I think they're gonna handle business in Cincinnati with ease.
Are you ready to submit your picks?
I don't
for
like
week
saying
1,
that,
Jack?
but I'm confident in a week 1 victory for the Vikings. I think the schedule gets a little bit harder after that. But as we sit right now, I know Joe Burrow still is kind of finding that knee underneath him, and their offensive line is still kind of worrisome in my opinion. But I'm looking forward to that. You probably hear a lot more about that.
I'm excited about the week 1 show, getting to talk about the Bengals because it's not unfortunate. I'm never going to be mad that I know stuff about the game of football, but I have to talk, I know a lot of Bengals fans. If I want to talk football, I have to know a lot about the Bengals in Cincinnati. So I know a lot, the Bengals and the Browns. I know a lot about the AFC North, so I'm excited that we play them this year because I follow all of those teams, not as close as the Vikings, but pretty closely. So also, and this is just me rambling at this point, but I've been doing a lot of mock fantasy drafts because I'm in a money league and it didn't play last year because of COVID. So I took a year off from playing for money. So this year I'm trying to make sure I'm on top of my game. I've been doing a lot of fake fantasy drafts on the ESPN website. And Jamar Chase is a guy that I always find myself snagging up in round 3 or 4 because I think he's going to be good. I'm really excited about him. I don't know if the Bengals should have taken him, but we can talk about that on Load the Box Bengals someday, I'm sure, whenever that show gets made. But a couple of pieces of information just to throw out into the atmosphere. The Browns guys are going to be going live on this same Facebook later tonight. I think at 8:30 Eastern time. They'll be talking about the Browns. That's probably it. Talking about their preseason game, what they liked, what they didn't like. If you have any interest in the Browns, feel free to keep following that. This is the crucial part. This Facebook page if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like the video, all that stuff. But if you're watching on Facebook, this Facebook page is going to be used as a hub for all of the NFL things. Load the Box grew this season with the addition of the Browns guys, and there are talks for a couple other teams probably next season, getting kicked off too. So the Viking show and the Browns show will keep coming to this page. But then if you're here for the Vikings, which I'm assuming you are, we're gonna start sharing here in the next probably couple of hours, maybe next couple of days. Another Facebook page called Load the Box Vikings. It's strictly gonna be Viking stuff. It'll be where me and Jack post stuff about the Vikings. If there's news, we'll post it in there. If we go live, like the Browns guys went live with training camp like a week ago, that would go on like a Load the Box Browns, not just the main Load the Box page. So we're in the infancy stages of a little media company here, so there's just some certain things that we got to figure out. And I'll try and find a way to clean that up and say it in about 30 seconds, and probably keep pitching that over the next couple of weeks while we keep growing. But just some minor growing pains as we continue to grow here at Load the Box. But it's not going anywhere. The show will still be located here, and you can find it anywhere that you want to watch it. But other than that, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of a player that I saw that really stood out to me. And other than Mond and Smith Marset and kind of KJ Osborne, nobody really jumped off the screen at me this week. And hey, it wouldn't be Vikings football if Mike Zimmer didn't throw a challenge and lose it. He did lose a challenge in the preseason game, so I'll go ahead. I'll end on that. I don't think the kickers missed any kicks. And didn't we cut a kicker this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Riley Patterson was waived. It sounds like Greg Joseph won that starting job. You're going to get me riled up right before we wrap
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to do it. We're going to start talking
special
about
teams.
You know what?
Because
go ahead.
The kicker, Joseph looked fine. He looked good. He made 2 of 2. I hope to God he'd make 2 of 2 because they weren't very long field goals. But my Lord, did Britton Colquitt look atrocious?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
It was ugly. I was gonna make a joke about this when we were talking about Zach Davidson. Maybe they keep him on the roster because he punted in college, and we might need a punter if Colquitt is gonna. I mean, I think Will Ragetz tweeted something out. He kicked 4 or 5 times, and I think it was like 80% of his punts netted under 40 yards. And the worst league average last year was like 42. Granted, a couple of those took lucky hops and it was more than 42 yards, but in the air they traveled like 37, 38 yards. And that can't be happening when the Vikings have an offense that I think is capable of being top 10 and a defense that is, in my honest opinion, capable of flirting with the top 5. When you want to control the game with your defense the way Mike Zimmer does, you cannot have special teams miscues like they did so frequently in 2020, and that is going to have to get turned around going into the regular season if they want to find success. I know it's a small thing, it's just a punter, but if you're not, I mean, the football is I can't even speak right now, but determining field position and pinning someone back within their own 20, it's huge, especially when you have a good defense that we don't think you're going to be able to run very easily on. That has to get cleaned up. Absolutely. Or things get pretty ugly in 2021.
There's a very interesting video by this YouTube channel called Secret Base. They do football. They do all sports content, but they posted this video about, I think it was the 2009 Chargers, but it might have been like the 2011 or 2013 Chargers. I'm going to end up getting this wrong. I know they were top 3 in offense and they were top 5 in defense, and they went 7-9 and missed the playoffs because of missed field goals, bad punts, letting people take kicks back. It special teams there are 3 aspects to football. There's offense, defense, and there are special teams, and it's very important. We cannot overlook it. Britton Colquitt could very easily put our defense in short yardage situations. Football's a game of inches. All of a sudden, it takes 2 first downs to be in field goal range rather than 5 of them. So I know we brought in an undrafted guy to try out. I haven't heard anything about him or how the tryout went.
The other tryout. Okay, I thought we were talking about there's that 30-year-old from LSU that they brought in early on, and then he was just waived right away.
Oh yeah. No.
But they brought in the other.
I can't remember where I think his team colors were some version of a powder blue, because I remember seeing a picture of him.
He played college at Kentucky.
That's what it was.
Punter for Kentucky.
So hopefully, something has to happen. We bring back what's his name, Corey Vedvik or whatever. Get that guy in here, let him compete, because. We got to stop calling him Skullquit too. If he's doing bad, don't give him a cool nickname. Take the nickname from him. Let him know that that's how we're disciplining him. No one call him Skullquit until he can stop booming the ball But if he can't do it anymore, then he can't do it, and it's time for him to be replaced. But there you go. There's the mandatory special teams panic that we're going to continue to have. And then that's really all I have is raising an eyebrow to the special teams. Hopefully they have a better showing on Saturday. But other than that, I think it's kind of see you next Wednesday with another show breaking down preseason week 2 and all the news that comes. Jack, do you have anything outside of Load the Box that you'd like to plug? And also, do you have anything from yourselves about Everson Griffin yet? Because I'm waiting for somebody to break that he signed, and it's gonna be you. I know it.
I haven't seen anything yet. If something were to come, I at this point in the day, I feel like it would come tomorrow. That's again all speculation. It just feels like it won't come tonight. It seems like we've gotten to that point where I guess I don't know what their practice schedule is like now that training camp is officially wrapped up. But I will say this: I'm excited to watch the Colts game on Saturday night. And now, because of the conversation we just had, I am almost 100% certain that Colquitt is going to go out and absolutely bomb like 3 or 4 punts, and everyone's going to be like, okay, sigh of relief, and then boom, right as time is expiring at the end of the first half, Joseph goes out for a 48-yard field goal and hits the upright. I'm just saying that I would almost put money on it now.
Would it be worse if he hit the upright, or would it be worse if he just like completely like just shanked it 15 yards to the left?
Do you want me to say it's a 27-yard field goal that he pulls to the left? Like, I mean, if we have to go there, we're pouring salt in the wounds with special teams, bringing up Vedvik and stuff already. So I mean, the salt in the wound. I mean, that's just a good nickname for Viking special teams. Honestly, is salt in the wound, because you never know what you're going to get with that unit, and I'm hopeful that they can get that turned around from what it was a year ago, because last year it was atrocious in all of the phases, not just kicking, not just punting, and kickoff coverage, punt returns, kick returns. Everything was awful. It all needs to get cleaned up. So I don't have anything left really to say. Like I said, I'm excited to watch this game against the Colts, and I'm excited to get another week closer to legitimate, real football. We are so close. I think Labor Day weekend is kind of the first weekend where that Saturday, albeit it's not great football games, but it's a full Saturday of college football. I'm looking forward to that. And then that following weekend, your Minnesota Vikings travel to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. And I'm saying it now, they come out of Cincinnati with a win. Most importantly, I'm going to say this now too. After that, I feel like it's a great time to stop the show after I'm calling